Escape from Tarkov is brutal, especially if you're new in 2025. And if you're going in blind, you're probably going to get lost, sent back to the lobby, and rage quit at least half a dozen times before your first exfil. But if you want to survive longer, make more rubles, and actually enjoy the game, these 10 beginner tips are going to save you hours of frustration. Now let's get started. The first tip is going to be really simple. Learn the maps. The game is based on extractions as well as points of interest. Tarkov isn't all just about fancy guns and PvP. You're going to need to know where you're going. And if you don't know where you're going, you're probably going to get sent back to the lobby. The first thing you're going to want to learn is the exfils on the maps that you're playing, and then the spawns of the PMCs, and then probably the PvP points of the map. If you're just a beginner player, you're going to want to stay away from those hardcore PvP areas. On customs, that's going to be dorms. On reserve, that's going to be the underground area, and on labs, that's going to be the entire map. The first maps you're going to want to learn are going to be Ground Zero, Customs, and Factory. Those are going to have the most beginner quests, and are honestly probably the easiest ones to learn. Once you've got a good handle on those, shift over to Reserve, Interchange, Woods, and Shoreline. Make sure you've got a good handle on those before you head over to Streets, Lighthouse, and the Lab. And don't even think about the Labyrinth if you're watching this video. Don't worry, you'll eventually get there. But not yet. Definitely get a few labs raids in before you head over to the labyrinth. Now, your best practices for learning these maps are going to come down to 3 main points. First of all, if you have access to the offline raids, go ahead and use those, run into an empty map, and get the feel for it. The second one is going to be your scav runs. Those are going to give you opportunities to learn better loot spots, know where to stick away from for the PvP areas, and while they do have separate exfils, you're going to want to learn those scav exfils as well. And the final low-risk way to learn the maps is going to be either the wiki or another interactive map resource. Map Genie is really good, but it only has a few maps. The wiki does have most of them. It's just not as high definition of a map. Still an absolutely fantastic resource that Uncle Josivan uses. To this day, he even keeps a wiki with the map open of whatever map he's playing open on a separate monitor. These maps are pretty in-depth. We could probably do an entire video on these interactive maps alone. So get in there, get a feel for it, and bookmark your favorite website for using a map. Our suggestion is going to be the wiki. Links in the description below. Tip number 2. It's a survival game with PvP elements, not a PvP game with survival elements. Tarkov rewards survival, not player kill count. Now, sure, you're gonna get XP, a boatload of loot, a pair of dog tags, or whatever from, shooting a player, but progress comes from actually extracting alive. Now, if you're a new player in 2025, some of these guys have 9 years of gameplay on you. Not all of them, but there is a good portion of guys who have stuck around for that long. Keep in mind when you go into a firefight, you might not come out of it alive. Best practices for survival are actually pretty simple. If you hear footsteps or gunfire, consider going the other way. If there's a team that's bigger than you or some sort of mega juiced ultra chad, maybe consider not picking that fight, unless you've really got the drop on them. If you've already completed your task or have a bag filled with loot, maybe consider heading to the extract and not pushing those fights that you're hearing in the distance. Do what you can to gauge your risk level. Now, that's not to say don't be ready for a fight, but definitely consider, is this the right time for one? Now, for tip number 3, we actually have a special guest, Phil JT, formerly known as Phil My Crevice. Now, go ahead and fill us in on tip number 3.
The next tip I got for you boys is insuring your gear. The positives around insuring your gear is it's super cheap, or it's cheaper than, the gun or the helmet or the armor. And say you're in raid and maybe you kill like a super juiced player that has a better helmet or a better headset than you. What you can do, or even a better gun, what you can do is you can dump those things, those items, and you're basically 100% going to get them back. So it's just a big economy booster. So over time, say you dump your gear, dump your headset, and you get those items back. And say you picked up some items from a juiced player, you're constantly gaining more and more money by doing this because you're getting your gear back and you're also taking from, maybe a scav or a PMC that you killed. The best practice doing this is you can insure all as you go into raid. This is something I commonly do. I do this pretty much every single time I go into raid. And another positive behind insuring all of your gear is, say you just died in a raid and you're getting out and you're gearing up for the next raid. What insuring your gear does is it saves it in a safe spot. Depending on, which trader you use, either Prapper or I think you can use Therapist if you like. I'm pretty sure Prapper's the cheapest, but it saves all of that gear in a special area in your messengers or in your messages. From there, you can alt click, you can hold alt and left click and it'll go directly onto your player. Another positive I want to say about insuring your gear is if you've killed a really like juiced player, it gives you a big confidence boost knowing that, okay, I have somebody else's gear on. If I die here, I'm not losing my kit. It's somebody else's kit.
Tip number 4, always bring meds and hotkey them. Now, a lot of beginners take a quick trip back to the lobby because they forget to bring meds. Healing in Escape from Tarkov is a lot different from other games. You can get different kinds of injuries that are going to need different items to fix and heal. One of the most brutal injuries that'll have you back in the lobby before you can even blink is going to be a heavy bleed or multiple heavy bleeds. To fix a heavy bleed, you're going to need something like a tourniquet, an S-Merch bandage, or a Calloc B. There is some medkits that will also stop a heavy bleed, like the Salewa, the AFAC, or the IFAC, or even the Grizzly. So make sure that you've got something like that on your person when you go into raid. At minimum, you're going to want to carry something that can solve at least every problem. Now, if you don't have access to a car kit or a Salewa, an AI2 medkit, an S-Merch bandage, and a standard bandage should be enough to get you through a raid for any of the bleeding problems. A splint or painkillers will get you by for a broken bone, although you don't want to be walking on a broken leg for too long. And a surgery kit is what you're going to need for a blacked out limb. Blacked out limb is something that is a catastrophe. It means something really bad has happened and that limb is basically dead. Now, some players put their most expensive medical gear into their secure container while they have their emergency items hotkeyed on their hotbar. Now, what you can do is go ahead and hover your mouse over one of your medical items that's in your pockets or your vest, and then press any of the top row numbers on your keyboard from 4 to 0, and you can hotkey those items. Now, a standard best practice is going to be building the muscle memory for specific items to specific keys. If you consistently have your heavy bleed on 4, your painkillers on 5, and your medkit on 6, you're always going to know what you need to press to fix those problems as they come up. Now we're down here to tip number 5, scav and scav often. Now, a scav is basically a free play on easy mode. You spawn after a whole bunch of players have already headed back to the lobby or are well into their task or mission at hand. And most of the AI on the map won't be aggroed to you, unlike when you run your PMC, where it's shoot first and ask questions never. Other player scavs are going to be friendly and VoIP with you sometimes. You know, be careful of those pesky scavs. Some of them will even offer you trades. Best practices for running scav is going to be really simple. Run your scav as soon as that timer is up, as often as it's up. Use your scav to learn good loot routes, and if it's late enough in the raid, go ahead and search common PvP areas for things that people might have left behind after a fight. If you get lucky, you might be able to find a PMC's body or 2 or 3 or 4 or 5, or an entire lobby in a high PvP zone. That's going to be a nice ticket to be able to fill up your stash with good kit. Remember, the more you run your scav, the better scav karma you get. Scav karma is going to be important for a whole bunch of things later on, but for each point that you have, it's actually going to build reputation with Fence to give you better kit in future scav raids. Tip number 6. Budget builds work. Now, this is something that Uncle Josivan talks about at length. You don't need a meta gun to win a firefight. A lot of beginners waste tons of money on accessories that they don't really know how to use, or meta kits that they're gonna lose very quickly anyway. The SKS, AK variants, and shotguns do just fine. Focus on learning how to aim and how to pick your best, most advantageous position, and not chasing the expensive guns. Don't worry. That'll come in time. If you do get some nice high-end gear, don't feel bad for saving it for later when you're more confident that you're not just gonna donate it to some super ultra mega sweat who's gonna come your way and, you know, take your stuff and send you packing. Tip number 7, and this is a big one, ammo matters more than the gun. Now, I know we've said it before, this isn't Call of Duty. In Escape from Tarkov, the gun is secondary to your ammo. If a super ultra meta M4 was filled with, say, hollow points, it's never gonna beat the stock build filled with super armor penetrating ammunition. There is strategies that you can use for cheaper ammunition like hollow points or rip rounds, like for example shooting somebody in the legs, but your best chances to win is going to be to find the best armor piercing ammunition you can find and pack your mags up with that. Now, you can check bullet versus armor penetration charts online, but the game actually has a built-in feature for you where you can actually look up how good the bullets you're using are versus the armor that you could be going up against. Once you get a few weeks into the wipe, you're going to want to start prioritizing penetration over high damage, since most of the players are going to be wearing class 3, 4, 5, or even 6 armor. Be sure to consider this when you're building your loadout. Build your kit around the best, most affordable, highest penetrating, and easiest attainable ammunition that you can. Tip number 8, only bring what you need. New players have a tendency to overpack. In a lot of other games, they don't have the same options that they would have in Escape from Tarkov. So it becomes really easy to weigh yourself down with your sniper rifle, your assault rifle, your pistol, your extra grenade, you know, your 10,000 mags of ammunition for each gun that you need to take. Simplicity is key here. Think about your mission and what you're trying to accomplish. That should determine the rifle that you bring. You probably won't need to bring a pistol because you're not going out for so long. And optimize your medkit so that you can heal at least one of every problem. That should be all you need to pack with you. Once you've got that determined, go ahead and grab some armor, a helmet, some good old electronic hearing, and a backpack, and you should be good to go. If you're worried about being out for a long time, go ahead and pack a snack and a drink into your gamma container. A can of Tarcola really goes a long way. Make sure you've got a go-to budget kit and stick with that. That'll keep things relatively simple. Boop. Tip number 9, aim for the head. And maybe the legs. Unlike other games where shooting the center mass is going to be the best chance at hitting your target and landing a kill, in Escape from Tarkov, center mass is also the most armored part of the body. If a player's outclassed you in armor, you're going to have a hard time punching through it unless you've brought super armor penetrating bullets, which are pretty hard to find. So in close fights, always go for the head. It's pretty hard to cover up a face. Most players aren't running face armor, and if they are, it usually doesn't survive that many hits anyway, unless they're like Uncle Josivan and are wearing a full-blown Alton. Now, if you're using a shotgun or high-damage ammunition, you can actually shoot for their legs and bypass their armor entirely. Nothing in the game actually covers up your legs, and once they're blacked out, your target's gonna have a hard time moving around. Also, once a limb is blacked out, the damage is immediately transferred to the rest of the body, the next closest appendage. Now, for the legs, that's gonna be the stomach. Once that's blacked out, that's gonna be the thorax. As soon as the thorax takes 1 point of damage over 0, that player's heading back to the lobby. Now you can practice headshots on scavs to build confidence before getting in toe-to-toe fights with PMCs and using that tactic, or you can head over to the Tarkov arena to practice up. Over 70% of all fatal shots in the Tarkov arena are headshots, so keep that in mind when you're in your next firefight. Tip number 10, and this is a hard one. If you can learn it, you'll be well ahead of the rest of the player base. Don't get stuck in gear fear. A lot of new guys get some really cool kit in a raid, or shoot down somebody, loot their kit, bring it back to their stash, never to use it again, collects mothballs and spider webs or what have you, and it fills up the stash. In fact, it can fill up the stash so much that you're gonna run out of space, and it's gonna be really hard to go on your next raid. If you're about 100 to 200 hours into the game, you probably know exactly what I'm talking about. Now, if you get a piece of kit that you know you're never gonna use, go ahead and sell it. Don't feel bad. Better to have the rubles that you'll use than a bunch of space in your stash that's taken up by a gun that you'll never bring in a raid. One tactic that Uncle Josivan uses to keep away from gear fear entirely is to always run the best thing in his stash. If he's got a stack of super high armor penetrating bullets, that's what he's packing in his magazines. If he kills another player and takes their better gun, that's what he's taking into the next raid. Dying, unfortunately, is a big part of the game, but keeping all that stuff in your stash isn't helping you, so feel free to run it every now and again. Remember, it's not your gear, it's just your turn with it. Try to remember that knowledge and progress matters more than loot in the end. So don't worry so much about losing that high tier kit, rather what it can do for you in the long run. Now, special thanks to our guest Phil, who stepped into one of these tips. We'll make sure that we put his channel in the description down below. Now, Tarkov is gonna punish you. It is a tough game, but hopefully this list of tips is gonna make your first few raids a little bit smoother. If you're a beginner and this video helped you out a bit, let me know in the comments what tip helped you the most. And if you're an advanced player, go ahead and leave a tip down in the comments for the new guys. Maybe we'll feature it in the advanced tips video. Now, if you found this video informative or it did help you out in some way, please consider subscribing to the channel. We've got a lot more Escape from Tarkov content planned, especially leading up to the 1.0 release. We're super excited to see a whole bunch of new players come into the game. If you could also do Uncle Josivan a favor and leave a like on the video, that's going to help us out in the algorithm. Uncle Josivan over there has been working on this channel for 3 years. We're almost at that 1,000 subscriber mark. Every interaction from you guys helps us out a ton. That's it for me for this video. Good luck on your raids, give them hell, and we'll see you on the next one. Oh, and if you want to catch Uncle Josivan on his stream, go ahead and tune in Tuesdays and Thursdays at 7:30 Pacific Standard Time. We'll see you then. Bye for now.